Good evening and welcome to the big Illinois Business Interruption Grant Program. What's the Big Deal workshop with Greater Ashburn Development Association. We're happy to bring this information to you today for round two of the big grant for qualifying businesses in DIA communities, and we will share what that means momentarily. The Big Interruption Grant is a 3-series workshop. Today's day one, getting my credentials in order. It is ever so crucial to get your credentials in order so that you are aware of what is needed. You have everything there is to get started and get your application going so that you do not have the hiccups that oftentimes people have when they're trying to submit for grants. It can be a tedious process, so we're hoping that this makes it a little easier for you. The topics we're going to cover are what is big, the eligibility requirements for big, for the business itself, the application process and what that looks like, and possibly some resources to help you with people who have gone through the process before, the requirements for the application process itself, what all you need to upload with the application, and resources, other resources to help you navigate this process. And at the end, a president's note. Big is the Business Interruption Grant. It's about $636 million. That was a program developed by Governor Pritzker and the Illinois General Assembly to provide economic relief for small businesses hit hardest by COVID-19. There are so many businesses that fall into that category. And of course, every single person cannot be helped. Hopefully, this helps the majority. Big leverages federal funding provided by the CARES Act, and we'll provide a link for that as well to offset those related costs, those related losses for Illinois small businesses. And you may use the funding to help with working capital expenses like payroll, rent, utilities, and other operational costs dealing with the business. And the specific this time, there was a round one, which is closed. It opened back in August, and this is round two, which opened in mid-September. Round one had $49 million directed towards restaurants. So you've seen a lot of restaurants that had gotten themselves back up or kept themselves from closing. Part of that was in part due to the first big round. Gyms and fitness clubs. A lot of people were indicating that you needed to get yourself fit and healthy. I mean, COVID, how many of you actually needed to get out of the house during COVID, right? So the gyms and the fitness clubs got preferential treatment, and then personal care services as well. We've seen a lot of unfortunate situations as a result of many people being housed because of COVID. So these things were deemed as necessary businesses, and you need to be located within a DIA. Those are disproportionately impacted areas, areas that were impacted disproportionately than other areas who saw little to very little to no impact as a result of COVID. And that had to do with the type of industry it was as well. And on average, each of those businesses that were awarded received about $17,000 in big funds. Round two, it's open right now. A total of about $220 million will be made available for businesses, all types in Illinois, with provisions, of course. And the provisions are bulleted below. We won't go through exactly the specifics of all those, but the focus is on the downstate businesses in the DIAs heavily impacted, meaning they were unable to reopen or they had to operate at a severely diminished capacity since the spring of this year, ultimately indicating that they may be nearing closing. Okay, so there's heavily impacted industries, disproportionate areas, downstate communities, and of course, those priority type businesses. Highlighted in red, we have agriculture. Agriculture is available in the coming weeks, so look out for that application, but you want to make sure that you go to the Illinois Department of Agriculture to ensure that you know when that application is coming due to be applied for. the grants and loan forgiveness for Illinois small businesses emergency loan recipients. This round of loan forgiveness and grants is going to go to businesses that have received loans or remain on the wait list, and the program will sunset going forward as DCEO and its partners focus on making these big awards. Okay, so this is the focus currently. Now, if you fall outside of the eligibility criteria, okay, for receiving funding, it doesn't mean that you don't qualify. It just means that you fall out of the priority review process. Okay, you still will be reviewed, but you're going to go down, further in the list than those who significantly qualify for the eligibility. All businesses will receive a decision on their grant application within 4 to 6 weeks of the application submission. In order to find out if your business is in a DIA area, here's a link for you. We'll give you a second to jot that down. Thank you guys for joining. I see several people are still joining. Thank you so much for joining. If you're just now getting on, we're just tapping in to the locations for the businesses that are eligible for the DIA areas. You can click on this link, not click on the link, but you can copy this link. This is not an editable link. It will be when you receive your recorded copy of the slides. Okay. The various requirements for round 2 as of September 15th. If you are a heavily impacted industry, okay, these are the industries that they consider heavily impacted, A through H. Okay, I won't read through all of them, but those are those eligible businesses that qualify as heavily impacted. The businesses that are operating in heavily impacted industries must provide the following, 1 through 7. Okay, your tax returns. So there's no question about that. Your tax returns are required for 2019. Not fill them out later, not apply later. Your taxes are required to submit with your application. Okay. Also, July and August of 19 and 20, bank statements, assigned W-9, and the ID of the business owner, not the landlord, the business owner. Also, rent or mortgage for July and August, as well as utilities for July and August, insurance for July and August, your payroll expense report, if applicable, for July and August, proof of a business loan payment, whatever your payment is for a business loan. If you acquired a business loan, the payment proof for July and August, okay? And of course, the business identification is a must. Just a few tips for submitting your application, and all of those links are coming for you to be able to get to the website, get directly to the applications and other resources. There's going to be a lot of people applying for these grants. There are a lot of people applying for these grants. A lot of people have already applied for this grant. Fear not. We're giving you what you need up front to kind of help you streamline that process. It's in red here. Save your application answers in a separate document. I cannot stress that enough for you. What we don't want is to have obstacles in your way so that you're submitting a document and then all of a sudden something happens. Everything disappears. You've just spent an insurmountable amount of time filling out that information. We don't want you to have to start that all over again, or better yet, become discouraged and say, you know what, forget it. Copy your answers onto a Google Doc, onto a Google Sheets even, onto your notes. Definitely recommended for you to do this on your computer and not on a telephone or a tablet. Do it on a computer. Copy your answers. Should anything happen, heavens forbid, you have at least the answers to just copy and paste and continue moving through the process. It is a copy and paste editable document platform rather that you will be able to do so. Organize your processes for applying so you don't miss crucial submission data. That's what we're doing right now, taking you through these requirements so that you have everything you need. Suggestion is put it inside of a folder or on your desktop so that at the ready, you can just go and click and grab and upload whatever it is that you may need at a moment's notice when it's time to upload those documents. If you find that in going through this process and in listening that you do not qualify, you're not eligible at this point at your current state of business, you can partner with other organizations who have been granted funds to offer your services to their programming. That's what you can do. So does that give you experience? Yes. Does it qualify for you for the funds now? No, but it does give you the experience, okay? And you are still able to offer those services in the capacity that you are able to, okay? There are several responses to frequently asked questions. There's a link here for that. You may have questions going throughout that we may not touch upon. You definitely can find those answers by going to this link. Again, it will be a clickable link once these slides are shared with you and on our Facebook pages. For those of you who have registered, you will be able to find answers to common questions. And I'm sure there are several, about 3 or 4 pages once you get to that link. There are several other links here that I did not want to grab the information and put all of the documents here. We'd have a very lengthy session right now, a very lengthy, quite a bit of pages. So we decided to grab all of these links from the site, put them in one area for you to go to the ones that you feel you need the information for instance, the application questions, the application checklist. Highly recommend that you take that checklist and you print it out and have it by your side and ready to go when you're ready to sit down and do this application. I suggest you have about 30 to 45 minutes available to get everything entered, to have everything uploaded and submit everything, and then receive your confirmation that it was submitted. Your certification form and eligible costs, both in English and Spanish. If you are not sure if the costs you want to apply for qualify, that's where you'll find that. You have also another link that'll give you guidance for not just the big awards, but also other federal support like the PPP, the Payment Protection Program, or the EIDL, which is the disaster loan for Illinois. These are places where you can get information about those as well. But most importantly, the non-duplication of benefits is the key here for why you're looking for this guidance in this link. Say, for instance, you're applying for the big program, the big grant, and you want to apply for employee salary. Okay, I'm just throwing out an example out there. I'm not indicating that that is a qualifying factor. I'm just throwing out an example. If you apply for an employee's salary to be covered under this big grant, you cannot have already applied for those same coverages through the PPP or the EIDL. There's no double dipping, as they call it, no duplication of benefits. So if you've already had it covered under one of the other government federal funding supports, then you cannot apply for those same things under the big. I want to stress that so that you do not waste your time submitting the application and waste your opportunity and have your application rejected. Round 2 of the eligibility criteria is also in English and Spanish, the eligibility for your business. So the links up top were the eligible costs for applying for the grant. And this is for the eligibility for your business itself. What in fact makes your business eligible or not eligible. Here's where you can find some details about that and get more specific information about it. If you find going through the process that you actually need help completing the application, you've had issues with the application submission, you didn't receive a confirmation once you submitted your application, here's where you can get that information from. Again, these links will be live in English or in Spanish. There's a big help desk where you can get technical assistance. Various partners and different resources and community navigators is what they call them are there and at the ready to help you through this process. We've listed quite a few of them here for you. Kind of wanted to point out a few of these because there is some information that may or may not be available to the points of clicking on each of these links, but I want to touch on some key people that are going to be huge in navigating this process, namely through the OMEE, okay? We have program manager advocates to assist you through this process, and they've got some events coming up as well. At the top, you'll see the Small Business Assistance website. That's where the majority, if not all of this information has actually derived from. Okay, so the sources down at the bottom is the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity website. That is where everything is coming from, but it's just been condensed for you because a lot of that information may or may not apply to some of you, but the nuts and bolts of what you need to know is right here through a lot of these links that have been provided for you. In order to apply, you simply click on the link under apply and it'll take you right to the application. And a note, if you need additional time to submit your application, it won't impact your eligibility or your chances of receiving a grant. Take the time that you need, make sure that you're going to get it right. That's the key here. You want to make sure you get the information correct when you submit it. That's the last thing you want to do, is have your application rejected because the information at your fingertips was not provided. You definitely don't want to do that. Okay. In order to get help, I provided a link here as well from the site. There's a form that you would fill out. You would then input what it is that you need help with, right? Whatever you need help with, you will put that information in that form, submit it, and one of the agencies that are assisting, one of the navigators, will get back with you so that you are in fact able to get the help that you need in time, okay? The Office of Minority Economic Empowerment, the OMEE office, you're going to hear that a lot throughout these processes, throughout these grants. OMEE, they have information coming up that you can find on their website, which is placed right there for you, so that you know what's coming up as far as what they're doing to share information and resources or assistance with completing this application or other funding opportunities. You can also email them at ceo.omee@illinois.gov. It's right there on the slide for you as well. And then again, the big community navigators that I mentioned are organizations that are there to help you understand the application process. It's one thing to be told what to do and try to work your way through it. It's another thing to actually know what to do while you're going through the process. So these individuals right here at that link where there are 42 SBDCs or Illinois Small Business Development Centers right there to help you through this process, okay? Chicago Urban League is another one, Greater Auburn Gresham Development Center, one of our partnering agencies in the ward. 18th Ward are also there. And then at the very bottom, there's an executive order link for you where all of this is compiled among any and every stimulus opportunity ever offered since the pandemic in the state of Illinois. You can find the entire executive order there. There was a podcast done right at the onset of everything. There's a part 1 and a part 2. You should be able to find the link on our Greater Ashburn Development Association Facebook pages. I'll make sure that it's out there. If it isn't, you definitely want to check that out. It did answer a lot of questions at the head of this, which actually ended up coming to head to be the case for what the stimulus funds and eligibility for them was predicated upon. And a lot of that had a lot to do with the uncertainty of what your 2019 taxes had to do with it. As you can see from the requirements for this big, it had a lot to do with it. You have to actually submit them now for this one. For the other fundings, I believe you just needed to state what your AGI was or something of that nature, and then follow up with the filing of your taxes for 2019. With this, your taxes must have already been filed. Okay. If you have questions about that, definitely reach out to some of these links on these pages like I've told you about. Some of the information also came from a webinar that we were a part of as well, October 2nd, that was conducted by the OMEE as well as the DCEO. Kimberly Hill, who's the Chief Accountability Officer for the Office of Accountability of DCO, was a panelist, as well as Tiffany Hawkins. She's a cannabis loan and grant program manager for the Office of Minority Economic Empowerment and Development. Both those young ladies have been on well over a decade and a half or so. So they know what they're doing when it comes to these grants and grant writing and opportunities. Matter of fact, on that call, we were talking about much of what we're talking about today, funding for small businesses and best practices for applying for a lot of these funds. And that's where round two activation for big was actually announced by Tiffany Hawkins. So kudos to her for sharing that information so that everybody could definitely get a leg up on applying and being very compliant with their applications. They also mentioned organizing your processes, which is what we just discussed, so that you don't miss crucial submissions when you're applying. You want to make sure that you're being very diligent and checking off that checklist that we provided a link to as well. You want to make sure you do that. Again, they indicated partnering with other organizations who have been granted funds, offer your services to their program. It's just a matter of picking up the phone or paying them a visit and saying, hey, I offer these types of services. I don't yet qualify for this round of funding, but I'd like to partner with you since you are a fund awardee and see if we can, make some great things in the community happen together. Okay. So basically, this grant being rolled out for a second time for small businesses, it's not a loan program. It is a grant program, hence the name, Business Interruption Grant, which means you do not have to pay it back. And I must add this caveat. As long as you follow the eligibility criteria, as long as you're actually eligible, your application is truth, and as long as you remain eligible once you are awarded, meaning you've spent the funds on what they are allowed to be spent on, what you said you were going to spend them on. Your record keeping is going to be crucial to this, because if you're audited and you don't have the proof, it's almost as good as being guilty of not having done what you're supposed to do, because there's no proof to indicate that you have. So please, please, please keep yourself orderly when it comes to your diligence and your financial record keeping, and make some things happen with your business. Go ahead and empower the community with your talents and your services. We're going to have some follow-up workshops. We wanted to share with you in the 60652 those that we've invited to the workshop. So hopefully one of the two that are left will have some feedback for some of those that were already awarded the big funds. And out of these 10, a total of about $200,000 has been awarded among them collectively. Some of these we all know very familiarly, and again, paying them a visit, making a phone call, seeing if your partnership is welcomed is definitely ideal. Okay, so hopefully we can get a couple of them, even if it's just one, to commit to becoming a part of one of the workshops, to kind of just walk you guys through what it was like for the process that they went through for doing the application. Again, this was in round one. Okay, what they experienced, and then once awarded, how it actually, saved their business, basically, for lack of a better term. We're going to also talk about SAMs, GATA, DUNS, all the things that you need. Well, DUNS, not necessarily, it's not a requirement to have your DUNS number, but if you don't know what these things are, be sure to check us out for our following workshops tomorrow at 12 p.m. and Tuesday at 12 p.m. If you haven't registered, go to our Facebook link, because they're totally different registration links for each day. And again, they're at 12 p.m. Central Time. We thank you so much. Writing the Grant is the next event tomorrow, 12 p.m. Writing the grant, I just want to be clear about what that means. It doesn't mean that you're writing an essay, although some grants might require you to attach an essay, very much like scholarships. Grant writing is simply this, and I don't mean to make light of what the actual talent of a grant writer is, but in layman's terms, for writing a grant, it means what you're about to do. Once you go through the processes of completing the application, you're eligible. So you're completing the application. You've deemed yourself eligible after going through the workshops, looking on the website, checking the boxes. Yes, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. Great, I qualify. You're eligible. You're applying. You're submitting. You're receiving acknowledgement of having submitted it. Even if you do not receive the funding, you have written a grant. Okay. You've written a grant simply by following the measures put in place to apply for the grant. That's writing the grant. So tomorrow we'll be actually writing the grant. So we're going to talk about some do's and some don'ts, right? And that's where the input's going to be weighing very heavily on one of the guest speakers that we can hope we can get in tomorrow, if not Tuesday. But that input, regardless if they're on or not, that input from that interview is going to be crucial in tomorrow's workshop. So check it out. Be sure that you register. If you have any questions or any follow-up or feedback, send us a message at info@gatachicago.org. That's info@gatachicago.org. Thank you guys for your listening ear. We're wishing you the best of luck on applying for this application, and we're hoping to see some great things come from the businesses that you guys either redevelop, reinstall, or continue to have installed in communities that need your services the most. And most importantly, I want to definitely reiterate that voting is the key to everything that we are doing. It is definitely key. If we don't vote, we have no right to complain about anything. If we don't vote, we have nothing to say about anything that happens to us, our children, or our children's children. Our children's children are going to look back and wonder, why didn't you vote for this? All you had to do was go vote. We must honor our ancestors that died before us, whose shoulders we stand upon. We must honor them with voting. They died so we could go vote. Oftentimes they died in the process of fighting and protesting to vote. The young people of today, the millennials of today, the older people of today, Generation X, baby boomers, are fighting today for us to remain privileged to vote. It is our responsibility to do so. You don't have the opportunity not to do so. To take it is to kill the people who have died for us again and again and again. So please vote. Our future depends on it. Take care.